Okay, here we are for the second part of our lesson on T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. First of all, one thing that I forgot to tell you last time. The last line of the passage that you had, that we talked about in the previous lesson, is in French. I will not dare to read it, but as you can see, it is once again a quote, in this case from Baudelaire's Fleur du Mal. So this means that once again we are looking at a very complex and structured and thought out poem. By the way, hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère, okay, I said it, it's quite interesting because he says that he looks like and is brother to the reader, but the reader is a hypocrite. So it's quite noteworthy. Okay, let's move on to our next part. As I said last time, we will be talking about a passage from the third section of The Wasteland. It is called The Fire Sermon, as we already said last time. And it will deal with a large objective correlative. We'll be discussing it as the lesson goes on. So, what is this section about? This section is the description of a bleak scene in a contemporary town. The contemporary town is obviously London, just as we said last time. And it's set in a different time and place compared to the one that we have just read. As we said, it is the objective correlative to the squalor and lack of passion of Eliot's age. Again, a poem titled The Wasteland could not be something that talks about happiness and how life is good. We're talking about a destroyed world, a land that's bare, dead, and that's inhabited by soulless people. Eliot's biography is partly the cause of that. World War I is partly the cause of that, and the uncertainty that surrounded the whole world after World War I, once again. The Wasteland was published in 1922. It's the same year when, in Italy, fascism took power, for example. So this period, as Only Connect says, is called the Age of Anxiety. And obviously the Wasteland reflects this anxiety. This part, which is the objective correlative to the squalor and lack of passion of the age, is quite interesting also for another very important reason. It introduces one of the main characters of this poem, the character of Tiresias. Let's spend some words on this character. First of all, Tiresias comes from Greek tragedy. In Oedipus the King, he predicts that the Greek town of Thebes will be destroyed, and also he is a character in Ovid's Metamorphosis, and in that poem he spends 7 years as a woman, then he reverts back to being a man. These elements are quite interesting. Also, here in Eliot's poem, he serves as the narrating voice of the whole poem. We can say that the whole poem is narrated from the point of view of Tiresias, but the point of view of Tiresias is quite interesting because it's not one single point of view. It's not the point of view of a single human being. Tiresias is blind. He was blinded by the goddess Athena because he saw her bathing naked in a pond. But since he is blind, as usual, the blind man in art always sees more, or at least sees something different from normal human beings. So he can see something that other people don't see. And also, as we said, he is both man and woman, meaning that he knows feelings and ideas of every kind of human being on earth. So his voice, that's the narrating voice of the wasteland, can be seen as a way, in a way can be seen as the point of view of all humanity. We don't have a specific narrator here. We have a human being that embodies in itself the whole world. Okay, so here's the text that we are going to talk about. For your information, is on page F59 on Only Connect, and let me check very quickly. On page, hold on one second, let me find it. Where is that? I hate. This book is on page 246 on Compact Performer. Okay, let's get in to read parts of this passage. Again, as you notice, it's more or less 40 lines in the middle of this section, which is quite long. As you can see, we are from line 207 to line 256 here. So it's quite a long section of this poem. So let's delve into the text. Okay, the first two lines are more or less the same as the ones that we have discussed in the previous lesson. Unreal city under the brown fog of a winter noon. In that case, the lines were set the poem in a different time and space, but used the same form. Let me find it on the book and I will read them to you. Okay, here we are. Unreal city under the brown fog of a winter dawn are the lines that are in The Burial of the Dead, the extract that we have discussed in the previous lesson. By the way, Unreal City is a quote taken from Baudelaire as well. And it's quite interesting that the city, London in this case, is described as unreal. It is quite an interesting term. It's hard to translate it in Italian, but it means that it's something that's in a way unimaginable. It's not something that the human mind can conceive. So here we are under the brown fog of a winter noon. So we are in the heart of the day, while the previous section was was at dawn. So people was walking towards their job, like zombies and soulless creatures. Here we have at noon this Mr. Eugenides, who invites the narrator, so Tiresias probably, at lunch in a luxurious hotel in London and then in Brighton. Here, once again, let's notice something. Cannon Street Hotel and Metropole are places in London and in Brighton, while Smyrna Merchant, Smyrna is a city in today's Turkey, which was a very important trade port in history. So once again, probably we have an example of the use of the mythical method, which unites past and present in a timeless place. We don't have necessarily we don't necessarily know when this poem is set. We know that it is in a time that was contemporary to Eliot, but it is set in a sort of timeless dimension. Okay, then we have these three passages are the first appearances of Tiresias, as we said. I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives, old man with wrinkled females' breasts, can see. Here we know that we have a description of this blind old man with female features as well. So we have the embodiment in these two lines. We know that Tiresias is the embodiment of everyone. And we know, we can see in the following parts that he can perceive the scene, and he has the capacity to tell things before they happen, and foretold. I, Tiresias, old man with wrinkled dogs, perceived the scene and foretold the rest. I too awaited the expected guest, and I've forsuffered all enacted, and so on. We'll see what this part in brackets is about. So we have this character who lives outside of time and can see everything, and he knows what is happening in the poem. What's happening here is, we will see, the worst scene of seduction you will ever meet, probably. We are the main characters of this scene. We'll see are two absolutely ordinary people. First of all, let me add that Tiresias, obviously, he has the capacity, since he is blind, and we said that, to see and feel suffering and anxiety of everyone, and in this case, of these two characters, a typist and his lover, who works in assurances, so is related to he's an absolutely ordinary clerk of low level, as he says, a small house agent's clerk, one of the law on whom assurance sits, as a silk hat on a Bradford millionaire. But first of all, let's see where this supposedly love scene is set. We are in the flat of this typist, which is clearly not a luxurious one. It's not clean, is not tidy. She clears her breakfast at tea time, so in the afternoon. She lays out the food for her and for her guest in tins, so it's not something bought in, for example, at the groceries. Is something that's already prepared. More or less, she just heats heats dinner, and her dresses are all stacked up on the sofa, on the divan, which she uses as bed as well at night. So they're all piled there, and she moves there somewhere else when she gets back. So it's an absolutely ordinary house, in an absolutely ordinary context in the wasteland. There is nothing luxurious. There is nothing that feels like home in this place. So the young man Carbuncular arrives, so the guest arrives. We have said that he's a clerk. He's not rich. He's part of the lower middle class. He's not a factory worker, but he's not neither rich nor important nor respectable. He's just one very ordinary clerk, and after they have dinner, she's bored and tired. He wants to seduce her. He tries to seduce her, and this scene is very dry. There is absolutely no love in this scene. That's basically the description of sexual intercourse between them. There is no love, no passion. His caresses, his endeavors to engage her in caress, which still are unreproved if undesired, then flushed and decided, he assaults at once, exploring hands encounter no defense. His vanity requires no discourse, and makes a welcome of indifference. These two people have sex, but there is absolutely no passion whatsoever, no love whatsoever. It's just something quite mechanical and quite brief in a way. In the end, he bestows one final patronizing kiss and gropes his way, finding the stairs unlit. So the clerk was there just for one reason, and once he is successful in having sex with this typist, he just leaves her with just one patronizing kiss. Once again, no passion, no love, no joy whatsoever in this description. And as we said, all this scene is the objective correlative to the fact that society in this period is decadent, is devoid of any love, passion, or positive feeling. And once again, in the end, now that's done, and I'm glad it's over. It's just one half-formed thought, so it's not even a conscious refusal of this loveless moment. She just, in a way, she does not feel anything in this moment. Okay, there is no place for love in the wasteland that Eliot described. Okay, so that was the last part of the wasteland. Next time we'll be moving on to something else. So thank you, and see you in a short time. Bye.